My brother uninvited me from Christmas, saying, "You look like a loser." So I cancelled his kid's tuition and his wife's Range Rover. My name is Liam, 33. 3 days after I nearly died on a frigid operating table, my older brother excluded me from our family Christmas dinner because I didn't suit his high-end business image. Caleb called to tell me that my presence would ruin his networking event disguised as a holiday gathering while I was lying on my living room sofa, pale, weak, and wrapped in heavy wool blankets recovering from an emergency gallbladder removal with life-threatening complications. He spoke the terrible words to me. He added, "It is no place for losers, Liam. You will just embarrass yourself and ruin the vibe." He laughed dismissively before hanging off. Caleb and my toxic family ignored one big, earth-shattering thing in their frenzied pursuit of social climbing. They didn't realize the quiet, modest guy they treated like a peasant was the cornerstone of their lavish existence. They had no idea I made 7 figures ghostwriting Silicon Valley tech CEOs. Most importantly, they forgot that my bank account funded his kid's premium private school and his wife's new Range Rover Sport. As they rush and beg as their pristine plastic world burns down, they are now discovering the true cost of their arrogance. My phone notification sound that afternoon seemed like a head blow. My skull was throbbing like a jackhammer. I was laying fetal on my sofa, surrounded by a fortress of dirty tissues, empty mugs of tepid herbal tea, and a plastic bottle of powerful prescription medications that hardly relieved my abdominal burning. The operation was brutal. My rehabilitation felt like walking my bare stomach across miles of shattered glass due to a slight inside infection and a delayed healing process. My weakness was extreme. My hand trembled as I went for the phone on the coffee table, exhausted from moving a single muscle. It read Caleb on the shining screen. A pitiful relief wave swept over me. Finally, my older brother checked on me. I texted him, and his wife Vanessa before anesthesia. Another cold, thoughtless thumbs up from Vanessa and radio silence from Caleb greeted me as I returned to my silent abode, but now he called. I foolishly assumed he cared. Clearing my dry, scratchy throat, I answered the phone. I informed him I was home and that the last several days had been terrible. Caleb interrupted me before I could finish telling him about the hazardous virus. He had a sharp, enthusiastic voice without a care in the world. He sounded like he was rushing through an office. He loudly proclaimed that he and Vanessa were completing the Christmas Eve dinner list and had costly caterers arriving in an hour for a mandated tasting menu. My brain was too slow to register his significant tone change due to severe painkillers. He asked me what I could bring this year since standing by a hot stove was too hot for my fresh stitches, but I proudly said I had already bought Vanessa's favorite pricey vintage wines for the family gift exchange. The line paused. Heavy, pregnant quiet seemed sharper than my stomach cut. Caleb exhaled loudly and theatrically. He constantly made a phony sympathetic noise before doing something selfish and calculated. He informed me the guest list will vary drastically this year. He promised a luxurious, exclusive atmosphere. Vanessa brought Beatrice, the vice president of her large real estate firm, and Caleb was bringing in 2 affluent angel investors for his new startup. I adjusted my legs on the sofa, wincing at the stinging, burning tug in my side, and told him it seemed like a really intense evening. I vowed to sit quietly in the corner. I promised to stay out of his VIP guest's way. I told him I needed to be with my family since being alone in a quiet house after a big surgery was affecting my mental health. Caleb sighed louder. It was an agitated, frustrated sound that showed I was a huge burden. He claimed I wasn't listening. This was no family potluck, he claimed. This was a crucial networking event disguised as a Christmas party, and corporations valued looks. He admitted that my recent appearance did not fit the exclusive aesthetic they were establishing. In my throat, my breath jerked. My stomach discomfort disappeared, replaced by a frigid shock. I inquired about his meaning. He adopted that condescending, lecturing tone I detested since childhood. He noticed I work from home. He noticed I wear cheap sweatpants, and drive a beat-up 10-year-old Toyota Corolla. He stated I was fine with my mediocrity, but his house guests were sharks. They won. He stated Vanessa was anxious about creating a good impression, and having her brother-in-law sitting in the corner looking like a sick ghost who hadn't brushed his hair in a week was not the image they wanted to create. The final hit was devastating. A sluggish loser, he said. He instructed me to stay home, take my medicines, and they could send over any cold leftovers. The line stopped altogether. My call was disconnected. Blindly, I stared at my phone's black screen. A pale, exhausted man with large circles under his eyes appeared in the dark reflection. I dropped the phone on the carpet and closed my eyes. My greatest efforts to stop hot tears failed. It wasn't simply my brother's icy rejection. It was the hubris, blindness, and cruelty of kicking a bleeding guy on his couch. We must go back to the beginning to understand why his vicious comments struck so deeply into my soul and why that beautiful Range Rover was about to be towed in front of his wealthy pals. We must examine the tremendous poisonous debt I silently carried for him for years. Caleb and I were divided from the start in our suburban home by thick permanent marker. Caleb was unquestioned golden child. He was the high school quarterback with the captivating $1 million smile who could persuade a rigorous instructor to improve a failing grade by asking about her weekend plans. I was the silent bookworm who built bespoke computers and wrote long stories in his small bedroom while everyone else watched football. He was loved by David and Helen, our parents. He looked like a Fortune 500 CEO bound for glory and wealth. They saw me as a pleasant afterthought, a backup plan they never intended to utilize. When college started, the obvious favoritism was unsettling. My parents surreptitiously liquidated a large portion of their retirement assets and took out a risky second mortgage on our childhood home to send Caleb to a costly out-of-state private university. They claimed Caleb needed exclusive network access. When I applied for schools, my father gave me a cheap glossy brochure for the local community college and told me that hard work and student debt create character. I didn't tantrum. I worked long nights in a dirty diner to pay for my tuition in cash. No one heard me complain. Simply put, I studied late at night and worked. Caleb meticulously used up every advantage he was given throughout the next decade. He founded a luxury watch brand that collapsed in 14 months. He tried to build a big tech startup incubator without coding. My parents rescued him every time the barriers closed. They sold a gorgeous lakeside land my grandfather left for us to pay Caleb's hollow business aspirations. I quietly established a prosperous career from my home room. I became a popular ghostwriter. I turned brilliant but inarticulate startup founders' raw, messy, disorganized thoughts into gigantic best-selling books and polished Forbes pieces. My hourly fees skyrocketed, but my lifestyle was inconspicuous. I acquired a small, well-insulated, paid-off house in a quiet neighborhood. I aggressively maxed out my 401k in investments. I drove a reliable 10-year-old automobile. I could tell time without a Rolex. 3 years ago, Caleb's artificial reality collapsed dramatically. A cold November Tuesday night brought heavy rain. I heard a panicked knock on my door. I opened it to see Caleb completely saturated. Sore, red eyes from sobbing. He appeared. Afraid. He stopped in my hallway, fell against the wall, and broke down. The awful reality he withheld from our parents was revealed. His credit cards were maxed out. He was 3 months behind on his large, inflated mortgage payments, and Vanessa, his gorgeous, shallow wife who had grown up with a silver spoon, was packing her fancy suitcase. She threatened a messy divorce and planned to take Noah and Mia back to her affluent parents' mansion. Caleb double-grasped my shirt. He wailed, pleading for financial help. He promised a huge success with a new business, but he needed time to raise investor funding. He stared me in the face and said I was the only person he could trust with his life. I saw my older brother, who had everything, now a sad puddle of water and tears on my wooden floor. I thought about my 8-year-old nephew Noah, who struggled with math. I remembered my 6-year-old niece Mia, who loved to doodle. I couldn't let those innocent kids lose their home and suffer a terrible divorce. Against my better judgment, I signed a strict financial contract with him. I refused to give Caleb a blank check or deposit money directly into his account because I knew it would disappear into expensive business lunches and dubious investments. Instead, I promised him I would cover the fundamentals to keep Vanessa from leaving. I automated bank transactions to Noah and Mia's upscale private school. I took up Vanessa's huge monthly lease on her new Range Rover Sport to protect her fragile public image so she could drive to her high-end real estate showings. I did it for love. I did that because families should protect each other during storms. However, I soon discovered that thankfulness is short-lived. As anxious months grew into years, Caleb never found a regular employment. He claimed freelance consultant status. He never returned $1 of my blood money. Worse, the family dynamic changed radically. Suddenly, his desperate humility on my floor that rainy night was replaced by a corrosive, insufferable attitude of entitlement. After paying the bills, they stopped thanking. They stopped inviting me to dinner unless they needed free computer help or someone to keep the kids while they attended pricey charity galas. The breaking point became apparent around the holidays. We had a huge Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house last year. I paid for Vanessa's huge organic turkey and pricey international wine, but no one addressed it at the dinner. My father, David, admired Caleb in the dining room. Caleb is really scaling up his operations this quarter. My dad enthusiastically told the room. That new LLC is going to change everything for the family. My father glanced at me. He smiled tightly and politely. And Liam, are you still doing that typing thing? Writing those little blogs for people on the internet? I held my heavy silver fork under the table till my knuckles grew white. Vanessa laughed condescendingly from across the table as I took a big breath, nodded calmly, and replied, yes. I am still writing to pay the bills. It is honestly cute that you have a little hobby to keep you busy, Liam. But you really should let Caleb give you some real business advice soon. You simply cannot drive that terrible old Toyota forever. It literally brings down the property value of the entire neighborhood when you park it in our driveway during visits. My parents actually laughed. Caleb arrogantly sipped my fine wine, which I had paid for. I sat silently. I bit my tongue viciously because I loved the kids too much to fight. 2 nights a week, I tutored Noah in math via Zoom. Mia got pricey professional art supplies every month from me. I kept telling myself I was saving them from poverty. I had no idea I was sponsoring a gigantic delusion. I paid top price for the bullets they boldly shot into my back. Update 1. Caleb shot me and expelled me from the family when I was recovering from major abdominal surgery on my couch. A cold, hollow agony surged fast across my chest, overshadowing the blazing pain in my surgical wounds. As the fresh stitches tugged tight against my skin, I sat up on the sofa, cringing angrily. Deep within me, a dangerous seething fire began. No post-op fever was involved. Rage was pure. It was pure, unrelenting rage. He knew I was entirely alone in this place. He recognized my physical and mental pain. And he threw me aside like expired rubbish because my comfortable clothes didn't fit his faux wealthy style. I picked up my phone off the carpet and accessed Instagram. Vanessa posted a new story 20 minutes ago at the top of my timeline. Tapped the glowing circle. The slow panning footage showed their big, decorated living room. The room I prevented the bank from foreclosing. It had thousands of dollars in unique gold and white ornamentation. A huge, elaborately adorned Christmas tree reached the arched ceiling. Comforting, expensive classical music played in the background. Vanessa wrote, "Prepping for the biggest night of the year. Exclusive VIP guest list only. High life success. No negativity allowed." At the bottom of the screen, I silently watched the short video loop 3 times. No negativity allowed. I understood. Their new code word for me. Zoomed in on the video with 2 fingers. I noticed the beautiful Italian leather sofa I helped them choose and partly paid for. Little Noah ran gleefully by the camera in his pricey custom-tailored private school winter outfit. My thumb threatened the flashing screen. Caleb on the phone called me a loser. He called me stale. He boldly claimed I did not belong with global champs. I quit Instagram and created my secure banking portal. I bypassed my normal inspection. I swiftly scrolled over my enormous diversified investment portfolios and high-yield savings accounts. The numbers were too big for Caleb to comprehend, even in his most desperate dreams. I firmly selected scheduled recurring transfers and settings. 3 luminous life support units kept his phony plastic world alive. Monthly automatic transfer, $3,500. Private tuition for Noah and Mia. Monthly auto transfer, $1,300. Vanessa leases Range Rover Sport. A $600 monthly automatic transfer. Emergency family support foods. I powered their arrogant triumph silently for 3 excruciating years. I whispered his nasty words to the empty living room. Stagnant loser. Ice cold, menacing smile. Not a joyful smile. A master demolitionist smiling at a doomed building before pushing the detonator. Caleb longed for a winner-only Christmas. Perfect style was his goal. Okay, I'll do what he wants. He utterly ignored the high society cardinal rule. Real winners pay huge bills. My thumb lingered over the private school tuition red cancel button. My body was flooded with a weird, tremendous wave of peace, erasing the sorrow, betrayal, and shame. Tap the glass screen. The banking app warned me strongly. Are you absolutely sure you want to permanently cancel this recurring transfer? This critical action cannot be undone. Yes. Cancelled transfer. Permanent $3,500 monthly loss. The next huge payment was due to the school in 3 days. I quickly descended the digital list. Luxury Range Rover lease, $1,300, month, due 15th, cancel. They spent grocery support on extravagant sushi dinners. Cancel. My back rested on the couch cushions. With 3 thumb taps, I had eliminated over $5,400 of my brother's monthly tax-free income. If I stopped paying the bills, people would notice when the school administration phoned or the burly repo man showed up in the driveway. I knew. I wanted to explain why the money well had dried up. Waiting was short. My phone flashed. At 10 a.m., 2 days later, on time, Caleb called. Let the phone ring and go to voicemail. It rang again instantly. A frenzied, uppercase text followed. Call me now, Liam. Emergency. 10 minutes passed. I cautiously walked to the kitchen, poured a long glass of cold water, took a deep breath, and called him back. The moment the phone line connected, Caleb yelled, "What did you do?" He didn't greet. I was not asked about my stomach's mending. He panicked completely. His voice shattered with hysteria. The school administration just called me. Mr. Harrison said the massive payment bounced hard. He said you completely removed your credit card from the parent portal. Good morning to you too, Caleb, I responded, sounding cool and emotionless. How is the exclusive Christmas prep going? He shouted, do not play your sick games with me, Liam. I am in the middle of a critical meeting. Harrison said if the tuition balance is not paid in full by 5 p.m. today, both kids are permanently unenrolled for the upcoming spring semester. What the hell is going on? Did your stupid bank screw up the transfer? No, I answered quietly, sipping water slowly. I canceled it. It was deafeningly quiet on the other end. All I heard was his raspy, terrified breathing in the receiver for 5 blissful seconds. You what? Why? Why in God's name would you do that to us? Why? Because, I said, with every drop of ice in me, I am a loser. Remember? You proudly told me 2 days ago on the phone, this family is no place for losers. And losers do not pay for elite private schools, Caleb. Real winners do. And since you are such a massive successful winner now with your high-end corporate friends and your exclusive aesthetic party, I figured you did not need my stagnant loser money anymore. You petty, vindictive piece of trash. He screamed, struggling for words. You are doing this right now, right before Christmas Eve? You are intentionally punishing Noah and Mia because I accidentally hurt your fragile feelings? I am absolutely not punishing anyone. I clarified, cutting through his trickery. I am simply stepping back. You clearly stated I bring the energy down. You said I embarrass you and Vanessa. Well, neither does my money. You absolutely cannot have it both ways, Caleb. You cannot treat me like garbage in private and use me as a free ATM in public. It is $3,500, Liam, he shouted into an empty office stairway. I do not have that kind of liquid cash sitting around right now. I am heavily tying up capital for the new business launch. Then maybe you should not be hosting a heavily catered party with expensive wine, I mused. Or better yet, ask your 2 new angel investors. I am sure they would love backing a winner like you who cannot afford his kids' education. He yelled, you are completely ruining our lives. Vanessa is going to have a massive nervous breakdown. Do you have any idea how much pressure she is under to make this VIP party perfect? Actually, I do, I said, turning the knife slightly. Which is exactly why I also permanently canceled the lease payment on her Range Rover Sport. It is due on the 15th. You might want to give her a heads up so she does not drive it to the country club and get stranded. He screamed a lengthy, horrifying curse at me. He said the pricey car was registered in her name, therefore I couldn't do it. I informed him that the money was coming from my account and that the bank of Liam was closed forever. I hung up. I could feel my heart pounding my ribs. My hands shook. I hated hearing my brother cry, but God, it felt great to stand up for myself. The desperate response was quick and pitiful. My phone received the family flying monkeys promptly. My cell phone rang again 2 hours later. My mother, Helen, and Aunt Brenda were on a 3-way conference call. They did not inquire about my surgery recovery. Liam, what is horribly wrong with you? My mother screamed, her voice shaking with forced sadness. Caleb is practically in tears. He says you cruelly cut off the children's education out of sheer petty jealousy over his success. I laughed cruelly into the phone. He told you I was jealous? Did he happen to tell you he completely uninvited me to Christmas dinner because I am not high class enough for his new friends? He is under massive corporate pressure. Aunt Brenda said, perfecting the manipulator part. He is building a lasting family legacy. You have a little house and 0 responsibilities. You have plenty of extra money sitting around. You are being incredibly selfish and cruel. Family always helps family, Liam. Family respects family. I retorted immediately. If his legacy is so incredibly strong, he can pay his own bills. I suspended both numbers, but Caleb continued. A dangerously desperate man. My premium credit card company sent me an urgent red flashing fraud alert the next morning. In a metropolitan high-end designer catering business, someone tried to charge $5,200. Cold blood raced through me. I gave Caleb an emergency backup card 2 years ago when his old car broke down in the middle of nowhere. I instructed him to quickly destroy the plastic card. I immediately contacted the bank's fraud department. The security guard confirmed the card was absent. One person manually inputted the numbers online. Caleb tried to steal from me to buy expensive gifts and food for his party. I told the bank it was big fraud. I reported and permanently canceled the card. My guilt vanished at that instant. This was no longer a sibling rivalry. This was planned financial abuse. That was felony theft. I would burn his phony facade. My rage quickly turned into strategic focus. If Caleb wanted to aggressively play a high society tycoon who had no boss, I would treat him like a defaulting corporate business partner. I called Silas, my best college friend, right away. Senior corporate litigator Silas works downtown, a bright, dangerous shark in a tailored suit who will not accept foolishness. I meticulously described the complicated issue to him over the phone. I detailed the canceled school tuition, lease, crazy Christmas party, and shocking credit card fraud from that morning. Silas remained silent until I concluded my narrative. Silas remarked, "You have been blindly giving him how much money?" In a deadly serious tone. "Yes, I have a highly detailed spreadsheet," I said. I opened my laptop and retrieved my detailed tax-related financial data. Every tuition payment, luxury car lease payment, emergency financial loan he swore he would repay, even Vanessa's purebred dog's pricey vet costs. It totals out to exactly $180,000 over the last 3 years. Silas whistled a quiet approval over the phone. Did he ever put in writing that these transfers were loans and not gifts? Yes, Absolutely, I said quickly, pulling up my 3-year-old cloud-stored text messages. Quote, I will pay you back every single cent, Liam. I just need time to scale, and I have dozens of other messages over the years explicitly acknowledging the mounting debt. Perfect, Silas whispered, and I could almost hear his predatory smirk. We are drafting a formal legal demand for complete repayment. I want all $180,000 fully accounted for in the document. It obviously won't force him to write a massive check today, but it legally freezes him in place if he tries to quietly sell the house or take out another line of credit to survive. This demand letter will act as a massive immovable roadblock. When exactly do you want it delivered to his house? Christmas Eve. I answered without hesitation. He specifically wants an exclusive, high-end Christmas party for his VIP guests. Absolutely nothing says high society quite like a uniformed legal courier showing up at your front door during appetizers. Silas immediately began preparing the devastating legal strike, while I saw Caleb's pristine plastic world suddenly disintegrate. Without my continuous income, financial pressure crushed them fast. The private school explicitly gave them a little time to raise funding. Toxic whispers were spreading quickly among rich parents. I was sure since a mutual acquaintance provided me a screenshot. I signed on to a burner Facebook account for neighborhood watch updates. My first stop was the gated community's members-only group page. Vanessa posted a desperate listing an hour ago, selling lease takeover for 2023 Range Rover Sport, immaculate condition. We simply need to upgrade to a much larger vehicle for our growing family. Please DM for details. Serious inquiries only. Must move fast. I focused on the brilliant computer screen. A growing family. The deception was pitiful and obvious. She fought for survival. The hefty lease payment was due in 2 days. She desperately tried to pawn the hazardous debt on a wealthy neighbor before the towing firm located the fancy car as the repo man circled their neighborhood. Their huge lies were choking them violently. They used inexpensive duct tape to keep the gleaming facade together long enough to wow their VIP guests as it cracked into a million pieces. Another business contact told me who those VIP guests were. Vanessa brought her direct supervisor, Beatrice, a powerful commercial real estate vice president. Caleb aggressively invited Harrison and Grant, 2 major angel investors, to fund his empty LLC. Caleb and Vanessa were unknown to these privileged folks. Only the meticulously made mask was known. The costly imported wine, professionally catered dinner, and shining Range Rover in the driveway were all they knew. I checked my desk digital calendar. Christmas Eve was 4 days away on December 20th. My surgery incision was healing well. My intellect was clearer than in years. I had lived my adult life in the shadows, letting my family use me as a stepping stone. I mistakenly believed the toxic narrative that I was the quiet, dull younger brother who was only useful when the huge expenses were due. I shut down my laptop and watched the snow fall from the living room window. I would attend the Christmas party. I wouldn't stay or eat their pricey catered cuisine, but I would give them a wonderful gift they'd never forget. I thought the worst of the betrayal was over. I believed my parents blindly backing Caleb was the worst knife stab. I was terribly mistaken. The frightening reality about my family's financial loyalty was waiting at that party. It would alter my entire understanding of my blood. Update 2. Christmas Eve arrived in our city, bringing a bitter winter wind that seemed to cut through my car windows. I silently parked my 10-year-old, fully paid off Toyota Corolla down the street from Caleb's massive, sprawling suburban house, or at least the house the bank owned for a few more weeks until harsh reality caught up with his massive financial lies. I sat alone in the driver's seat, my old car's heater fighting to prevent the temperature from freezing, watching the heavy, wet snow swiftly gather on my car's bonnet. I was not invited to this elite holiday party. I knew my older brother had made it painfully plain when he called me when I was bleeding on my couch to say I would ruin his corporate aesthetic. But 2 small gifts wrapped in plain brown paper were carefully placed in my car's backseat. My bright little nephew Noah received a highly specialized, pricey coding kit. The other was a professional watercolor set for my niece Mia. I wouldn't let my older brother's enormous, fragile ego deprive his innocent children of Christmas with their uncle. They should not be penalized for their greedy parents. For the frigid evening, my strategy was really simple. I would silently stroll up the long driveway, drop the 2 wrapped gifts at the front door, hand over Silas's enormous legal papers, and leave before my poisonous family insulted, degraded, or humiliated me again. I surveyed the immaculate street. Every grand house on the wealthy block followed the pricey, dazzling holiday design. While I watched the peaceful street through the snow, a sleek black corporate town car quietly rolled up to Caleb's house. A sharp, stylish woman in an emerald green wool coat entered the cold night. Vanessa boldly displayed her professional corporate profile images to our family, so I knew her face. The commercial real estate firm Vanessa worked for had a powerful vice president, Beatrice. Vanessa badly wanted Beatrice to give her a huge promotion and salary boost next year. A new electric Tesla stopped softly at the curb behind the corporate town car. Two elderly guys in costly custom-tailored suits walked on the snowy pavement. Caleb was aggressively pursuing Harrison and Grant, two wealthy angel investors, to get big investment for his empty business endeavor. Caleb's house appeared to gleam in the winter sky. Every enormous bay window was filled with beautiful golden light. I saw dark silhouettes of wealthy people moving effortlessly within the living room, clutching fine crystal wine glasses and laughing loudly at jokes I couldn't hear. From the outside, it looked perfect. It looked pricey. It resembled a gigantic, well-constructed, frail lie. I took a deep breath, grabbed the two wrapped gifts and the thick manila legal envelope from the back seat, and exited my car into the bitter winter cold. Walking purposefully up the long twisting driveway, my heavy winter boots crunched noisily on the frozen pavement. As I approached the enormous three-car garage, I saw something pitiful and revealing about their position. Vanessa's white Range Rover Sport wasn't parked in the driveway for VIP business guests to admire. Instead, the fancy car was aggressively jammed into a dark, tiny area on the far side of the home, partially obscured by thick evergreen plants. She deliberately hid the pricey car from the street. She was afraid of losing her ultimate status symbol before the VIP party because she heard the repo man was scanning license plates and her zip code tonight. I knocked on the enormous wood front door with my gloved hand. Before my knuckles touched the black polished wood, the massive door rapidly slid open from inside. There was Caleb. His outrageous rich burgundy velvet tuxedo jacket probably cost more than my first year of college. His right hand clutched a large crystal glass of pricey imported whiskey and his hair was nicely slicked back. His dazzling, phony, charismatic smile evaporated the moment his eyes met mine. His face went absolutely white, turning a sickly, scary pale gray. He appeared to have seen a ghost on his doorstep. "What in the hell are you doing here?" Caleb yelled, stepping outside into the cold and partially closing the big front door to obscure the bright, warm celebration inside. "Merry Christmas to you, too, Caleb," I murmured gently, despite the adrenaline rush pounding my ribs. "I am just dropping off these gifts for Noah and Mia. I am absolutely not staying to ruin your exclusive corporate aesthetic. Just take the boxes so I can go home." I shoved the brown paper bundles at his chest. Caleb did not take the boxes. He stared at me in disgust. Dark denim trousers, a thick wool winter coat, and a knitted scarf were my comfy outfit. I looked like an ordinary, hard-working man who had just come from the cold. No wealthy socialite discussing a big real estate portfolio over expensive caviar. Angered, Caleb murmured, "I explicitly told you to stay away from my house tonight," scanning the street in dread for anyone watching us. "I am actively securing my entire financial future right now. Harrison and Grant are inside drinking the vintage wine right now. You absolutely cannot be seen standing on my porch looking like a homeless person. Give me the damn boxes and get off my property right now before I call the neighborhood security patrol to aggressively escort you out." A crisp, demanding woman's voice screamed out from the warm entryway behind him before I could respond to his wild, cruel threat. "Who is at the door, Caleb? It is absolutely freezing out there. Tell them to come inside and shut the door before you let all the heat out. Beatrice." Caleb panicked deeply, his eyes widened in abject dread. He could not make a loud, confrontational scene on his front porch in front of his wife's firm's vice president. He carefully opened the hefty wood door with a tense, unnatural grimace. "It is just Liam, my younger brother," Caleb called back inside the home, shivering with tension. He brutally pushed me over the threshold into the bright foyer, gripping my arm like a vice. "Drop the stupid boxes on the table and immediately leave through the kitchen," he murmured into my ear, scotch and real dread on his breath. "Do not you dare embarrass me in front of these people tonight." The big house's heat instantly warmed my chilled face. It smelt like fresh pine needles, pricey cinnamon candles, and gourmet roasted turkey. The huge entrance led to the large living room, where 15 well-dressed people were casually mingling. Noisy chatter in the room halted. Every eye slowly turned to me, awkwardly standing by the front door with two brown paper bundles and a hefty manila envelope. "Liam." Vanessa emerged from the big designer kitchen with a silver platter of intricate canapes. Her nicely manicured face turned into a horrific mask. She looked at my damp cold boots, then panicked at her sparkling, pricey white imported rug. "We absolutely were not expecting you tonight. Caleb told everyone you were violently ill and highly contagious." "I am leaving right now?" I murmured, staring into Vanessa's fearful eyes. "I am just dropping these gifts off for my niece and nephew. I absolutely do not want to interrupt your high-end corporate networking." As I turned to put the two boxes on the foyer table, I spotted my parents, David and Helen, relaxing on the costly leather sofa near the fireplace. My mother's face was tense with disdain. My father got up and pointed an aggressive finger at me from across the room. "Liam, your brother explicitly told you this was a closed corporate event," my father said, meaning to chastise me like a rebellious child in front of the wealthy strangers. "You have zero business being here tonight. Have some basic respect for Caleb's important career and leave right now. You are entirely ruining the mood." Since childhood, My father had emphasized Caleb's artificial success over my life. The man who was sitting in a property I saved from foreclosure, confidently drinking excellent wine I bought with my own money, aggressively told me I didn't belong in the room my money had paid for. The situation's audacity was intoxicating. The tall woman in the gorgeous emerald green coat entered the foyer before I could turn around and leave the front door into the frigid weather. It was Beatrice. She held a crystal champagne glass, looking glamorous and frightening. She disregarded Caleb, Vanessa, and my outraged parents. She looked at me with sharp, analytical eyes, tilting her head like a puzzle solver. "Wait just one moment," Beatrice remarked, her strong voice breaking the tense, unpleasant silence of the huge living room. She took 2 deliberate steps toward me. Liam the ghostwriter? The man who structurally edited and rewrote the Horizon Tech CEO memoir last spring. Complete silence filled the living room. A pin dropping on the costly hardwood floor could have been heard. The sudden interaction puzzled and derailed Caleb, who forcefully blinked. His high-pitched, anxious laugh resembled a dry choke. "What? No, Beatrice. There must be a massive misunderstanding," Caleb sputtered. "This is just my little brother, Liam. He just writes silly little blogs on the internet from his couch. He is currently in between real jobs right now, struggling a bit financially. You know how the economy is right now. We kindly try to help him out with family charity where we can." He did it again in front of me in a room full of corporate VIPs. His goal was to make me look like a charity case to boost his bogus prestige. Beatrice ignored Caleb's anxious talk. She approached me and extended her hand with professional reverence. She shouted, "You are the absolute best structural editor and ghostwriter on the entire East Coast." To make sure every affluent investor heard her, "My chief executive officer actively tried to hire you on a massive retainer contract last year. You cost an absolute fortune. Your corporate lawyer told us your private waiting list for new clients was over 6 months long, and you firmly rejected our massive salary offer without a second thought because you were fully booked with Silicon Valley billionaires." My smile was tiny but sincere, and I boldly shook her hand. "It is actually an 8-month waiting list now, Beatrice. It is incredibly nice to finally meet you in person. Your CEO runs a brilliant operation, but my schedule was simply too full to take on another massive project at the time." Caleb's face lost all color instantly. He appeared ready to vomit on the white rug. His shaking hands were ripping apart the years-long lie he had created. Caleb said, "I really think you are horribly mistaken, Beatrice," trying to reclaim control of the room. "Liam heavily relies on us for money. He drives a rusted 10-year-old Toyota. He does not have corporate clients." I said, "I think we should entirely stop pretending right now, Caleb," loudly and clearly in the quiet, attentive room. Vanessa shouted, "Liam, please do not do this right now," from the kitchen doorway, panicking. Her hands were shaking so much that the silver appetizer tray rattled against her rings. "Do not do what exactly, Vanessa?" I inquired gently, carefully turning to face her. "Do not tell your wealthy corporate guests that I paid the massive cash deposit for the expensive catering they are currently eating. Do not tell them I bought the vintage wine they are drinking from my personal checking account. He is highly medicated," Caleb yelled, his voice booming off the vaulted ceiling. "He just had major abdominal surgery. He is suffering from intense post-surgery delirium. He absolutely does not know what he is saying. Please, everyone just ignore him." "I am absolutely not confused, Caleb," I said, holding the large manila envelope I brought inside. "Definitely not a Christmas gift." My aggressive lawyer, Silas, had formally drafted the terrible legal brief, and I am absolutely not a stagnant loser. Losers do not completely fund your fake luxury lifestyle for 3 full years while you pretend to be a wealthy corporate tycoon to your friends. I deliberately strolled to the costly glass side table next to Harrison and Grant, the 2 enormous angel investors, who were in astonishment. I firmly laid the large legal envelope on the glass with a pleasant thud. "That document is a formal, legally binding demand for the immediate repayment of the $180,000 I have personally loaned you since 2021, I told the VIP guests, staring at my older brother. "That massive sum officially includes the expensive private school tuition for your children that you lied and told everyone you paid with your corporate bonuses. It also strictly includes the massive monthly lease on the white Range Rover Sport parked outside." "You are completely lying," Caleb shouted, lunging for the glass table to grab the package. Harrison, the taller of the 2 wealthy businessmen, immediately led Caleb with his hand raised like a traffic cop. Harrison coldly remarked, "Let the man speak," his keen eyes narrowing ominously at Caleb's pitiful expression. "I permanently canceled all of the automated bank payments 3 weeks ago," I said, feeling lighter and stronger with every syllable. "Because you proudly told me on the phone that I did not fit your exclusive aesthetic. You were right. I absolutely do not fit in here because I actually pay my own bills with my own money. Liam, you are completely ruining this family." My father David shouted from the sofa, his face turning a frightening purple. "How dare you embarrass your brother like this? We gave Caleb our entire retirement savings. We completely drained your future college fund and your grandfather's inheritance to build his business. If you destroy his reputation tonight, you destroy us all. We have absolutely nothing left." The secondary twist shook the room like an earthquake. My parents surreptitiously bankrolled his early failures with money we both owned, bringing themselves to the edge of destitution to keep Caleb's golden child reputation. They had staked their lives on a losing horse, depleting their 401ks, and now they demanded I pay their horrific gambling debts to rescue their fragile egos. The dark living room was flooded with intense orange and yellow light. Bright flashing colors came from the large bay window facing the street. Each person in the room looked at the glass. A big heavy-duty tow truck aggressively pushed into the driveway, blocking the exquisite corporate town car and the electric Tesla in the frigid snow. The falling snow reflected the dazzling flashing lights, creating a wild nightclub-style strobe glow over the carefully adorned Christmas tree. A large hefty man in a high-visibility outfit aggressively jumped out of the truck cab with a metal clipboard. He confidently approached Caleb's slightly open oak front door and loudly pounded on the glass panel. "I am looking for a Vanessa," the repo man shouted, his harsh voice muffled but detectable through the frigid glass. "I have a highly expedited legal order for the immediate repossession of a white Range Rover Sport. I see it hiding on the side of the house. You can hand me the electronic key right now, lady, or I can forcefully use the steel hook to drag it out of the bushes. Your absolute choice." The vast living room was suffocatingly quiet. Vanessa's hands gave out. The heavy silver tray of pricey appetizers fell suddenly onto the hardwood floor. All that could be heard in the huge home was the smash of ceramic plates and the splash of shrimp cocktail on the white floor. Beatrice, the vice president, carefully gazed out the bay window at the tow truck's flashing yellow lights, then down at the hefty legal demand letter on the glass table, and lastly at Caleb, horrified. No anger was on her face. Pitying was incomparably harsher in the brutal corporate world. "I think we should all leave immediately," Beatrice said to the two angel investors, setting her crystal champagne glass on the next table. "No, wait, please." Caleb ran toward them, crawling over the mangled shrimp cocktail, and grasping Harrison's fine suit jacket sleeve. "Harrison, Grant, Beatrice, please, it is a massive banking error. A complete misunderstanding. My brother is mentally unstable and trying to actively sabotage the massive deal. We can fix this right now." Harrison aggressively shook Caleb's anxious fingers off his fine suit jacket as if it were covered with radioactive filth. "The absolute only massive error here tonight, Caleb," the investor said, "was you arrogantly assuming we would not run our deep corporate due diligence. We fully knew about your LLC filing status being entirely delinquent. We just attended tonight to see if you would be honest and transparent about your cash flow. Clearly, honesty is absolutely not your strong suit. Do not ever contact my corporate office again." The investors turned and left confidently. They aggressively stepped over the big mess on the pricey carpeting. Caleb, stunned and hyperventilating, was passed quickly. They left through the heavy front door, disregarding the muscular repo man who was using noisy hydraulic machinery to secure Vanessa's white Range Rover, and fled into the cold winter night. I stood alone in the destroyed living room center. The rest of the high society crowd, wealthy neighbors, and distant corporate friends rushed to the coat closet to escape the radioactive embarrassment. "I want a complete divorce," Vanessa shouted, her neatly groomed hair tumbling madly in front of her face. She aimed a shaky finger at Caleb violently. "I am absolutely done with this fake life. I am filing for full custody of Noah and Mia and I am moving back to my parents' estate tomorrow morning. You completely ruined my professional career in front of my boss." Caleb slowly turned to me. He looked tiny, looked old quickly. The ugly burgundy velvet jacket looked like a shoddy, badly fitted high school play costume. "You completely ruined my life," he lamented, hot tears flowing down his pallid cheeks. "You destroyed absolutely everything I built." "No, Caleb," I responded calmly, slowly buttoning my thick winter coat for the cold. "I absolutely did not destroy anything. I just finally turned the bright lights on, so everyone could see the rot. There was no explosion or battle immediately afterward." Massive egos deflated slowly, pitifully, agonizingly. The luxurious car was violently pulled away into the darkness, so I left the cold driveway. Vanessa was yelling about hiring a terrible divorce lawyer to get full custody of the children and every dime in their empty accounts, so I left. I left when my parents started sobbing about their lost retirement cash and social status. I confidently left the front door, got into my trustworthy, totally paid-off Toyota, sat quietly in the driver's seat, and breathed. For the first time in years, the crushing weight on my chest, the laborious secret-keeping, the tremendous financial burden, and the incessant desire to blindly protect my miserable family from brutal reality were gone. The sudden end of that unhealthy familial dynamic felt like a long-overdue burial. Instead of enormous anguish, I felt immense tranquility. After driving home, I made a huge cup of hot chocolate and watched a comedy. I spent Christmas Day alone in my quiet house, and it was the most calm, delightful holiday of my life. In the anxious months after the tragic party, the phony house of cards crashed totally. Caleb could not afford the huge mortgage without my monthly payments and no affluent investors. The bank drove the house into foreclosure hard. The large property had to be listed in late January. It sold swiftly, but after aggressively paying off the large bank debt and various legal liens, including my lawyer Silas's $180,000 lawsuit demand, they left with nothing but the clothing on their backs. The corporate fantasy died quietly and pitifully. Vanessa delivered on her loud threat. She demanded full custody of the kids, divorced, and returned to her parents. Caleb was forced to move into a tiny, gloomy two-bedroom apartment near the noisy city center. He finally needed a hard work. He was no CEO. He was a pressured mid-level account manager who aggressively sold commercial HVAC equipment over the phone. Because they stupidly gave Caleb their life savings, my parents had to surreptitiously apply for part-time retail jobs at a local hardware shop in their late 60s. No one from my family spoke to me for 6 months. I desperately wanted emotional and physical separation. I needed quiet time to recover from the painful knowledge that my parents and older brother had treated me like a cash resource rather than a person. In late April, my phone buzzed with a text. Absolutely not from Caleb. It was from Noah, my nephew. Can you please come to my soccer game today, Uncle Liam? Dad says he has to work and cannot make it. I went. I relaxed on the cold aluminum bleachers in my sweatpants and hoodie, proudly watching my nephew run on a somewhat muddy, uneven public school sports field. He no longer wore the pricey private school uniform fitted for perfection. Despite looking scruffier and worn, he seemed happier and lighter. He rushed wild across the field toward me when the whistle halted the game. My niece Mia was also there, sitting calmly on the green grass and drawing in the professional sketchbook I gave her for Christmas. Noah threw his arms around me and muddied my spotless jacket, shouting Uncle Liam. I didn't care. Hey there, buddy. I patted his back and said warmly, Dad told us you are secretly super rich, Noah innocently stated, pushing back and staring at me with huge, inquiring eyes. Is that actually true? I boomed with laughter, feeling great in my chest. I am very comfortable, Noah. I am comfortable because I work incredibly hard every single day and I do not buy expensive things. I absolutely do not need to impress people who do not care about me. Mia said, Dad says he is really sorry. Without looking up from her vivid picture, he strongly told Mom he was incredibly stupid. Caleb stood alone by the chain-link parking lot fence while I slowly stared up across the muddy field. He wore soiled khakis and a cheap wrinkled windbreaker. He appeared weary. His weight had increased and his hair was thinning. Definitely no longer the golden boy. Not a phony tycoon. He was broken, anxious, and working hard to pay child support. After seeing me glance at him, he slowly waved his hand. He avoided the bleachers. He finally respected the large, immovable boundary I had legally and emotionally created by keeping his distance. I only nodded at him, not waved. There was no instant forgiveness. I need years of therapy to forgive that kind of treachery, but it was a sign that he was now living in the real world with us. As we gently approached my reliable, paid-off automobile, I realized something profound and significant. Caleb was right about one thing when he called me that dreadful day. That upscale Christmas party was not for losers. But standing there holding my darling niece's small hand, knowing my mortgage was paid, my vast financial accounts were secure, and my conscience was clear, I knew who won. I wasn't the insecure man who required a rich audience to feel important. I was no sad man who needed a rented velvet jacket and a leased fancy automobile to feel important in a room full of strangers. I was Liam. The silent foundation was me. This was my ghostwriting. For the first time in my life, I had rewritten my tale and fixed my life first. Let me tell you, that tremendous peace of mind is the best aesthetic anyone could wear.